Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the staggering 20-year evolution of arguably the world's most controversial social network. We're going to completely unpack how a tiny, exclusive college directory somehow transformed into this absolute global data behemoth.
So, you know the popular narrative, right? Facebook's founding is so often painted as this raunchy Hollywood romp just full of wild parties and backstabbing. I mean, we've all seen those dramatic promos promising a tale of sex, money, genius, and betrayal.
But the actual reality? As documented in internal research and massive government reports, it is a really stark contrast to that sexy saga. It honestly wasn't just an accidental dorm room project that sort of stumbled into global dominance. Actually, it was a highly calculated, incredibly systematic evolution.
Act 1. The College Network. Let's look at where it all began. It started as this small, slightly controversial project that Mark Zuckerberg famously claimed literally took a week to make. And looking at the timeline, from the totally messy launch of FaceMash in 2003 to the swift registration of the Facebook.com in 2004, and the immediate lawsuit from the Winklevoss twins right after, the early days were definitely chaotic, but they were highly localized. In fact, early Facebook was strictly built on authentic identities, close friends, and, this is key, a promise of absolute privacy. Look at this quote from 2004. Zuckerberg explicitly promised, "I'm not going to sell anybody's email address." He was assuring users they had total 100% control over who could actually see their information.
Act 2. The pivot to openness.
But as the user base exploded, those foundational promises, they were quietly dismantled. The company essentially deleted provisions that allowed users to completely remove their content, and they shifted everything to be public by default. So your isolated, ad-free college network of 2004 completely morphed into a sprawling ecosystem that was entirely reliant on third-party data tracking. And this massive push for openness led to their very first major privacy rebellion, all thanks to a feature called Beacon. This was a 2007 advertising tool that literally tracked users' purchases across the web, even after they logged out of Facebook, and then broadcast those purchases to their friends without explicit prior consent. It was an early, glaring indicator of the sheer data hunger that would totally define the company's future.
Facebook quickly realized that user data was basically digital gold, and that realization led to massive investments, high-profile executive hires, and an ironclad corporate structure. Microsoft injected $240 million into the platform. Sheryl Sandberg was brought over from Google specifically to build out a robust advertising infrastructure, and they implemented a dual-class stock system. This guaranteed Mark Zuckerberg permanent, unchecked control over the company's direction.
So, by 2010, the company's messaging had completely flipped. Zuckerberg began arguing that society had essentially evolved past the need for strict privacy, publicly stating that privacy was, quote, no longer a social norm.
Act 3. The outrage algorithm and the monopoly.
To maintain this newfound dominance, the company utilized a rapid-fire buy or bury strategy. Just look at this timeline. By grabbing Instagram for $1 billion and WhatsApp for a staggering $19 billion, they effectively neutralized any emerging competition long before it could ever mature.
But this immense scale came with massive blind spots. $5 billion. Just take a second to process that number. That is the record-breaking fine the FTC levied against Facebook following the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Let's break down exactly what happened there. Third-party apps secretly vacuumed up personal data from tens of millions of users and their friends to build highly targeted psychological profiles. This massive data harvest occurred largely without explicit consent and was then sold off to political consultants. It was a really stark revelation of just how incredibly vulnerable all this accumulated data truly was.
Now, around this exact same time, user engagement on the platform was actually dropping. So the company tweaked its newsfeed to prioritize content that sparked interaction. Which leads us to a vital question. What happens when an algorithm fundamentally rewards anger?
Well, internal documents revealed the mechanical answer. The algorithm actively prioritized outrage. Behind the scenes, the system weighted an angry reaction emoji 5 times heavier than a standard like. Think about that. If a post made you mad, the algorithm made sure more people saw it.
And this algorithmic shift pushed users directly toward extreme content. It wasn't just organic curiosity at play here. Internal researchers found that a staggering 64% of people who joined extremist groups did so specifically because Facebook's own algorithms recommended it to them.
Act 4. Real-world fallout. Because this algorithmic amplification absolutely did not stay online. Independent security analysts found that the platform became a prime target for adversarial nations, aiming to push disinformation directly into American feeds. Whether it was Russia buying ads to sow division, Iran pushing misinformation, or China promoting state propaganda, the algorithm's blatant preference for sensationalism made the platform highly exploitable.
And the domestic impact was just as profound. From public health crises during the pandemic to the amplification of election denial content and even the proliferation of white supremacist recruitment hubs, the internal documents clearly show the company was repeatedly warned about these compounding negative externalities. Researchers even noted significant, measurable declines in mental health among teenage users directly tied to using the platform.
Yet, despite public promises of fair moderation to combat all these issues, a secret tier existed. It was called the X-Check program. This internal whitelisting system shielded nearly 6 million VIPs from standard content moderation. It allowed high-profile users to spread unchecked claims without any penalty, completely contradicting the company's public stances on safety.
As internal researchers brought forward clear fixes to curb this polarization and toxicity, leadership repeatedly rejected them to protect user engagement and profits. It's powerfully summarized here by whistleblower Frances Haugen. When faced with a choice between user safety and continued growth, the documents indicate the company pretty reliably chose the latter.
So, looking back at these 20 years, we really have to ask ourselves, if a platform designed to connect the world ultimately profits from dividing it, who actually holds the power to change its code? How do we reclaim our digital society when the very foundation of the algorithm is built to feed on our outrage? It's a really critical question to take away from this explainer today, and honestly, one that's going to define the future of our digital world. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the algorithms that shape your reality.